Hello, everybody. I am really pleased to see an old friend that I haven't seen for a really long time today. Somebody that most of you will know, I'm sure, Gabriel Mojay. It's so lovely to see you.
Elizabeth, hi. No, it's lovely to be here with you.
It's been a really long time since we've had a chat. In fact, do you know, when was the last time we saw each other? Do you know, I think it was probably when I was in Utah in 2016. Maybe haven't seen each other since then. So it's
Uh,
really nice to have a chat.
yeah. So, by the way, speaking of which, are you going to go to the one next month? Are you going to?
No, I'm not. Not
No.
this time. I
Yeah.
have a new book launching at the end of this month. So,
Oh, wow.
and
Oh, great.
so a
Yeah.
commitment to my publishers this year. So,
Oh, good.
yeah,
Good.
lots to do here.
What's the title again? Because I did see about what was the title
Yeah.
again?
So the book that comes out at the end of the month is called "Meeting the Melissae: The Ancient Greek Bee Priestesses of Demeter." And it came about from starting to write about lemon balm, and which is obviously Melissa officinalis, and I discovered these priestesses and they gate crashed my life somewhat. And yeah, so a new book comes out at the end of the month, so I'm excited.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've written a ode to Melissa that mentions about bees.
Well, yes, because it does mean bees. I think, do you know, I think
Yeah.
I read it once and thought it was lovely. I should have put it in my book, shouldn't I? So we haven't really spoke, and since
Yeah.
you got with autumn, so many congratulations on your
Oh,
new
thank you.
relationship status. So that's
Thank
really nice. And I know you were interested to talk about our respective journeys because we've both been in the industry for amount of years, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
So I remember the first time that we met, I said to you that my mum sent her regards because in the past, I think that your paths have crossed on
Yeah.
various aromatherapy boards, haven't they?
Well, yes, yeah, Jill Bruce. I mean, and I often think when I see your posts about, your mum, because she was instrumental, and I know, well, I think of her as her and Shirley Price as a sort of northern powerhouse of aromatherapy. If that's okay.
Definitely in the 80s, they definitely were, weren't they? So mum had one of
Yeah,
well, I think mum and Shirley had the two largest schools. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, it's very different to the work that I do. She did write one book called The Garden of Eden, which is still on sale on Amazon. But
Mm.
what she did was make creams and lotions, and she went around the country to different trade fairs and agricultural
Yeah.
shows. And I can remember we used to have production day on a Wednesday, and we used to make 140 different products on a Wednesday. And now I decimate the kitchen doing one. Such admiration for it. So, how long have you been in the industry?
Well, I suppose, I mean, broadly speaking, I think for me it goes back to 85 when I started working at Neal's Yard in London, when it was the only one in Covent Garden, and when Romy Fraser was in charge of it before she sold it to Dorling Kindersley. She started it, Neal's Yard Apothecary back then, now Remedies. And I slightly got in trouble though at the time, because when I was studying acupuncture at the time as well, so when people came in, and a herbal medicine I was studying too, and I was studying essential oils as part of herbal medicine then, and then I had this job in Covent Garden. When people came in though and asked for, if they told me their ailment, I could make up a herbal remedy. But Romy didn't really like me always asking them to stick their tongue out as well. I got in trouble. I got in trouble for that, asking customers to stick their tongue out. Other customers might think it's a little bit odd. They've only come in to
I wouldn't
buy
have thanked you for it, that's for sure.
their natural peppermint toothpaste or shampoo or whatever, and somebody's sticking their tongue out.
So, how
Anyway,
long did you work there for?
Oh, it wasn't, not. It was only for a year or two while I was a student of acupuncture, and yeah, and then after that, I think I got seriously interested more, especially when I studied with, Pierre Francom and Dr. Daniel Penwell, who came over in 1988, 3 years later, and did a series of what they call scientific aromatherapy. So that's when I got more inducted into the pharmacological aspects of it, with and it was at that time, very soon after, l'aromatherapy exactement, that kind of classic, which weirdly has never been translated into English, but
No,
is the
I remember Michael Flowers telling me that as well. That's definitely a job that should be done by somebody.
well, the thing is that Michael who?
Michael Flowers.
Oh, I don't
Oh,
know.
no, Michael Scholes of Laboratory of
Oh,
Flowers.
Michael, yeah,
Yeah,
Michael
yeah,
Scholes,
Michael Scholes.
Michael.
Yeah,
Oh, good friend of mine, very good
yeah,
friend of mine.
lovely man.
The only thing is, though, that it's good to have as a classic, but not so. It's come under fire. It's the main target for, Robert Tisserand, Marco Vellucci, and that group who've been questioning functional group theory. So it's like, if you're going to have a go at functional group theory, that's the book. That's the Bible of it. That's where it started. And it's true that, well, I think there's something to be said for grouping the functional groups, as long as you remember that, you've got sometimes quite often got, a lot of different exceptions within each group. So I kind of was more sympathetic when they had this debate between, I think on one side there was Robert and Marco, and on the other side there was Melanie Kovac and Timothy Miller. And I could see that, I a little bit sympathized with them, but because also Robert and Marco had already put together this like incredible paper that had all this massive research that, and kind of debunked a lot of it. But I already knew about the fact that the instrument that they were talking about back then, 33 years ago, that measured the plus and the minus electromagnetic charge of different compounds in essential oils, this instrument that they had, and they made all these measurements, they said, was not reproducible. Like, no, there was no other source of it anywhere. And I even asked Robert Pappas, and said, no, it was just as, that it's not anything that is, you can really reproduce out of that. But it's not, I think there's a lot there that is still insightful that one can relate. And I think good on them to bring in yin and yang at the same time. I mean, being a TCM practitioner, I like the fact that even then they were trying to make links between, or make science more accessible to people like me, who maybe had a scientific dad, but did, got swept away by literature when I was young, before I discovered yin and yang when I was only 19 in Paris, and people like me, because of yin and yang has been in my mind my whole life. When they teach you that as a way of understanding the molecules of essential oils, then I think that it gives you, a good, a powerful road into it, that not all of us can have just by having a purely scientific outlook on it. So
I think everybody gets a lens, don't they? And once you've
yeah,
found
yeah,
your lens, you're in.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I feel quite sorry for people who are like trying to just learn off the internet, of pages and pages of this is the fact about this oil. Because I do
yeah,
think that patterns really
yeah,
help, don't they? So I can see the reason. I mean, I never really thought in terms of functional groups. I understand them, but I don't think in that way. And I don't really think in
yeah,
terms of yin and yang. Mine is
yeah.
medical astrology. That's the route I go in. once you've got that
Okay.
lens, it's easy to understand, isn't it? But if you haven't
Yeah.
got a pattern, it's difficult, I think.
Well, the funny thing is, I actually taught. Well, I kind of taught myself astrology a couple of years before I really discovered essential oils. Actually, back 40 years ago in '83, when I spent a couple of years in Maryland on the East Coast, and at that time when I was very young, before I went to, well, I say very young compared to now, but anyway,
Relative
I,
term.
I was at, I was about 20 or whatever, and I got to hear these lectures by Alan Oken. I don't know if you know him, but he's
I do.
written
I
some.
know his name, but I don't know who he is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, his approach was fairly mainstream-ish, but and then after that later, I had a partner, and I almost did myself, who studied with Liz Green, at the Center for Psychological Astrology, which since then, I've got a lot of different books. It just so happens that the ones behind me, I've got all her main books on Pluto, Saturn, and the lot, so yeah, medical astrology, is, and I'm doing this class in Atlanta coming up with Shelley Entine. We're going to have it in March now, which I'll go into those aspects of the aromatic plants and essential oils, that have planetary symbolism and etc. And but because it's only a weekend, I think my first idea, and because I've taught this before, initially in London in '96, and then for Gabriel Mojay in 2013, but you can't, it's too much, just 2 days, like a weekend. I mean, to say medical astrology is really an overstatement. I can give people an idea of it. So really, it's just going to be teaching the fundamentals, but again, giving people a way into it through making those connections with aromatic plants, via coal pepper and a lot of the ancient symbolism, like you've found with your book, with Melissa.
Yeah, definitely. And it is the only way I can read a plant, really, to be able
Yeah.
to go, right, oh, right, that's Jupiter. Oh, I understand everything there is to know about Jupiter. So that tells me huge amounts about that oil. I mean, able to really
Yeah.
kind of pack all that information into one plant. I find that a much easier way to learn about a plant than to kind of go, and it does this, and it does this, and it does that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's yeah, I mean, that's well, of course, that's the process of what Jung spoke of in relation to the fire element, the intuitive function out of the four, between thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And actually, that's a big part of Liz Green's approach to astrology, of course, is using the four elements in that way, and it's in the Jungian way of that. And like what you've talked about and the way you think is, and even Rudolf Steiner talked about intuitive thinking, where you see patterns and links more. And really, that's a modern problem. Well, the problem is that conspiracy theory is a manifestation of a kind of undeveloped fire element, like the shadow aspect of fire. When people make things up, they see connections that aren't there. But to see connections accurately is a healthy fire element function of seeing patterns in nature and everywhere. And actually, first of all, that's a very important part of how we work with TCM diagnosis. Rather than hone in on that person's one problem, see the pattern around it that is connected, and gives you a picture of that underlying terrain, the underlying constitutional terrain, which, as you say, you can use language like Jupiter to address, or an imbalance of. Do you know what I mean? Or you want to restore the natural harmony of that planetary energy, which is an archetype and has these relationships with organs and psychological functions. And like I said, it's a whole study in itself. I mean, I think in a way it's a whole parallel study in a way to, if you take it to its full extent, like similar to TCM. I mean, it's not really the same, fair to say, because it doesn't have all the modes of application that TCM has, but I mean, in terms of, I'm only speaking in terms of a theoretical framework of understanding the psyche.
Absolutely.
At least that aspect, without claiming too much from medical astrology, but certainly psychological astrology, and in some ways, it's definitely more intricate than the classical view of the psyche in TCM or Ayurveda, to be fair, really. It is. And because modernity, about one thing about modernity is although we've lost, I think, a lot of traditional spiritual wisdom, in many ways, we're a lot more articulate about all the aspects of the psyche, but you've got to bring those two together. And I think, the kind of work that you're doing by going back to that ancient wisdom as well, and to tap that, I think is a good way forward. And for me, in a way, I'm doing a little bit what I was inspired to do when I began this journey in the early days with Francom and Penwell, in something I call pharmacoenergetic, which is looking at essential oils from, in a way, like you say, where we're going to look at, say, the activity of lavender, the fact that, it's anxiolytic, antispasmodic, and so forth. It goes hand in hand with its ability to smooth the flow of chi in TCM. And that is I call that pharmacoenergetic. Rather than just so what I'm interested in is, these days I love reading the PubMed science, and of course I'm always interested in the energetic understanding, like of which Peter Holmes is really, I think, the most eloquent to describe. But what really excites me most, I would say, is when I read research that I know echoes what we've known and what was said since ancient times by the wise women.
Yeah, I mean, it is really fascinating, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
so this, I'll share this with you because I think you really enjoy this. So this was, when I was reading about the Melissa, I was like, well, who are these women? What do they do? What are they for? And it became like a massive, massive obsession, really.
Yeah.
But also, more than that, what on earth is it about them that they keep appearing in lemon balm? Because that can't just be a word thing. Where was the herb? Where was the herb anywhere? And so I went through a billion. If I went through one historical document, I've been through 7 million, just looking for it. And there was just one little clue, and everything is lost. So that I can tell you, I do know what the connection is, and I'll share it in a minute. But there was one little mention. So the priestesses had lots of jobs. It was there. So priests served gods, goddesses were served by priestesses, and their job was to open conversation with the goddess. So, and they did it through many different ways, through creating festivals, prayers, what have you. And when the priest did a sacrifice, they let out the death cry, with the exception of one set of priestesses called Melissa Cathonia, and they were priestesses of Demeter Cathonia, and they were crone priestesses, old priestesses, and these are the only ones that actually did the sacrifice themselves. In other cases, it was always the priest. But so there's this fascinating story of these priestesses. There were 4 in the temple. They would sit in the corners, and there would be a big procession where the priests would lead the cattle down to be sacrificed. And one beast would go into the temple. They would close the doors, and it was said that the beast would go to the altar and sacrifice itself. They would give the priestess its ear for it to slaughter it. And then when that was done, they would open the door and the next beast would be sent in. So that was really, really strange. So then I was given a book to review by a magazine that I write, and it's called Occult Botany by a man called Paul Sadia, I think. And it's translation of very, very old French stuff. And in it, he says, if you tie a sprig of Melissa around an ox's neck, it will do anything you ask it to do. And I was like, what was that? is that how they did it? I mean, who knows? But actually,
Right.
there is. So one of the secret is that the bees make a scent to a pheromone to signal to the other bees. This is home. Come on in, which is called
Yes.
nap, and it smells the same as lemon balm. That's what the secret is. But this idea of these oxen was fantastic. And then when you look at that and you think, yeah, but that's just lost. It's completely dislocated from anywhere, isn't it? But that's old wisdom. And then you see all the stuff coming through in the medical labs and you think, is there a link? It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I do love a PubMed
Yeah.
piece of paper, I have to say. Yes.
Yeah. So
But
that's kind of where my journey, goes back to your original question. But when did how did your mother's how did your mum's evolve in the early days, as it were?
still, Mom has always been very psychic. And when I was a little girl, and I don't know how old, she started working as a professional clairvoyant. Because
Wow.
all my life, I've always known her working as that. So people would come in on an evening. They'd ring up and they go, "I want to make an appointment to see the clairvoyant," and then they'd come in, and all these black country women would sit in our living room while Coronation Street was on, smoking their days away. But she'd see all these old ladies and she'd be really upset because they'd be really gnarled up and in an awful lot of pain with arthritis. And so she'd said, well, I'm going to look for a way to try and make these people better. And then one day we used to go out every Saturday to town and have cake and play in this, annoy all the women in the department store because we'd try all the hats on in the wedding.
Which town?
And we went to a bookshop.
Yeah, which town were you in?
Wolverhampton.
Wolverhampton. Okay.
Yeah. And we went to a bookshop, and a book fell off the shelf and hit her on the foot. And she went, "That's a sign," and she put it in a bag, paid for it. When she got home, she said to my dad, "This is what I'm going to go and learn to do." And he went, "What is it?" She went, "I don't know. I will find out." And it was about aromatherapy. It was by Patricia Davis. And she went and trained with Patricia Davis and learned how to make pots of cream for arthritis. And it grew from there.
Wow, it's amazing. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Patricia Davis, she's great. Yeah. Well, I invited her once to speak at when the association, because I started this association in 1990, the RQA, and it merged with ISPA to make IFPA in 2002. And Shirley Price was behind it from very early on as well. And that's how it really got going in 1999 when Ian Cambray-Smith became chair. But going back, while RQA was still going, because I started it in 90, and I think it was 92, we had Patricia at, when I was running my diploma course out of Royal Masonic Hospital, where also Robert Tisserand held his course at that time, funnily enough. And yeah, I remember him. I had almost the first time Robert had seen a laptop. It's like, "Well, is that a laptop?" Or one of the first. He was in, yeah, it was curious about, because I had a laptop, that was like 30 years ago, literally. But Patricia Davis was really, really, she was a good speaker, really good speaker. And I know she had moved down to Totnes, because she moved down to Totnes. And of course, she changed her name, of course, to a spiritual name. I can't. What is? I won't try and say it. It's kind of an Indian name, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah. She's written a book even under that name, and I think it's on a slightly different topic though. But anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I shall look that up. Yeah. So you talking about that laptop. So I always say this is a story I tell my youngest. I've got 3 children. So the oldest 2 are 30 and 29, and then I've got a 14-year-old. And I said, when we used to be on the road, Nan used to have the first kind of mobile phone. And he went, "We've all got mobile phones." I went, "Not like this, you haven't." So it was about like this. No, it was bigger than that. It was like this. And it was like a proper phone that you plugged into the wall. Oh my goodness me. You needed two people to carry it.
It's just a dial.
Yeah.
Dial.
We used to put it on the
Oh.
store and yes, hello, yes, we've done these amount of sales, and then everybody would go, oh, it's your turn to carry the phone, it's too heavy.
Wow, that's heavy, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
So you are going to do this course with Shelley.
Yeah,
Tell
that's
us
fun.
a bit about that.
Well, the thing is that last year, especially last year, I gave a lot of classes that were pretty scientific, actually. Like really a lot of research about and trying to explain a lot of the processes of essential oils that stem from its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, the whole abilities of essential oils to exert an anti-radical absorbing capacity, and therefore being antioxidant, and also all the aromatics we eat as herbs and spices, how they protect the brain through exerting an anti-mutagenic activity, protecting the DNA and promoting something called apoptosis. So apoptosis is the natural cycle. It happened, I literally millions of times a second. Honestly, I've read it, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's a continual cell process of life and death. And of course, when that's disrupted, and we lose that ability to naturally die and and recycle our vitality in our cells, then that proliferation, and they're also described in many instances as being anti-proliferative, anti-mutagenic, stopping that mutation. So I've got explaining a lot of the science behind it, and especially the research, because I did a whole study of which I was commissioned to do paid to do, actually, into West Australian sandalwood, and I found how many studies, over 100 supported, downloadable from PubMed, show to the extent to which, especially alpha and beta santalol, the main constituents of sandalwood oil, and the West Australian being the only now sustainable one, by the way, Santalum spicatum, exert a lot of really promising, important activities to protect us from, actively speaking, especially skin cancer, breast cancer, and a cancer of prostate. Really important. Even in the conventional world, of course, they can't make the money from it. So otherwise it would be out there and people would be using it a lot more. So, that's been a big thing, really, that I was going through, teaching a lot last year, live online too, and especially, actually I was really lucky. I mean, I had a class that Laura Cantelli organized for the International Journal of Holistic Professional Aromatherapists, and we had a lot of great, even some well-known aromatherapists in the US, and that was great. And then later, it's funny with the medical astrology course, relating that to the essential oils and aromatic herbs, because I did it the first time only was back 96, and then I didn't do it again for a whole decade, and it kind of just popped out of the blue again, because that was in 2013, even longer than a good while. And I think it was because I don't do it very often, because during that period I was really busy running my institute. And also, I've got to be honest, and maybe you should maybe question this about me, but I didn't maybe sometimes always want to appear overly esoteric back then, because I had an institute that had been approved, that even the term had been approved by the Department of Trade and Industry, and I had doctors doing my course, nurses, And I was really trying to integrate the Rhiannon Lewis. We took people down to France for a week. You know, I was trying to beef up the science because I knew it was a weak underbelly of the course. I brought a lot of TCM in there, which gave it a good backbone, but it was still, you know, I still wanted it to be as good, for example, as the Tisserand Institute. So I didn't do it again until the astrology one, astrology of essential oils, again until 2013, when a friend of mine, Andrea Bouget, runs Aroma Head Institute. We were talking about me doing a class for her in Ithaca. I gave her and her partner, Cindy Black, a choice of about 3 or 4. Well, I can do all these topics. And then I thought, I'll throw in the astrology one at the end. It was like number 5. And they got back to me, said, that's the one we want, because I knew now I forgot they did have an interest in astrology. So I did it then. It actually sold out kind of overnight, like 30 people. It was fun. It was great. But then again, I just left it. And it was only a while ago, earlier this year, I was having a conversation with my friend Shelley Entine, who, by the way, there's 3 of us who have the same, well, not birth year, but birthday,
Oh, really? Are you born the same day?
Yeah,
No,
December,
same date.
December 15th. And I mean, this is already the proof that is in the pudding, because honestly, I didn't choose Shelley because, I know, I'll bet if I think of someone who's got the same birth date as me and who's on Facebook and who loves aromatherapy, that I'll go and ask them, hey, let's teach astrology together. But the fact is, no, I went to, well, it's because we're friends, and she, was really feeling, because of all the COVID, that there wasn't, less opportunities live, and so I thought, well, and combined with the fact that I love going to see my friend Ros Zollinger, who's one of the nicest people in the world.
Oh, right,
yes. Probably the nicest, maybe, I don't know. Along with my course, and my best friends and all that. But no, seriously. And so any opportunity to go, and I was, it's overdue to go and kind of my East Coast teaching home, if you like, which is in Atlanta, the Heal Center. And so to do that with Shelley was just like, yeah, let's do it. It suddenly came to me. And the next minute I woke up, I thought, I'm doing this again now, sort of thing. But I feel fine about it because I've got a lot of confidence behind me, having gone so deep into a lot of the science. It's taken me, I'm not saying that I'm suddenly, got kind of anything like, if I think of people like Professor Reichling from, he spoke at Botanica, and he was a big antiviral expert. I mean, yeah, maybe if I could have gone back to when I was gone to uni and, did biochemistry, but it's not going to stop me. The fact that I didn't follow a scientific path from the very beginning, that's not going to stop me being excited about all that scientific side of essential oils, and seeing how the incredible thing is also being able to describe it in TCM terms, about like what we call protecting the essence. That's like your DNA essence, which even the ancient Chinese knew about, even pre-scientifically. They actually knew that you had this thing in you called the essence, which we know is now the DNA. They actually knew that was from combining of your parents, and that's what govern your whole development through life. They actually knew that 2,000 years ago in TCM. So,
is that Jing?
Yeah. Sorry?
Is that what they call Jing?
Yeah, brilliant. Perfect. Yeah,
so
exactly.
So when you explore Jing, it's fascinating, isn't it? All the levels of how you can lose Jing and what have you over time.
Yeah, and I did a class once. Yeah, thank you. It's so good for remembering that. I did a class once when I spoke. The one time I spoke for Kurt Schnaubelt's conferences, when he used to have them. I don't think he's had one for a while. The ones of the Pacific Institute of Aromatherapy, and I gave one once, and I called it about. I think it was something about nourishing the jade pool. I forget the verb, but the main thing is the jade pool. I love that because that's like the essence of in a woman. That's like their fertility is their jade pool. So there's a lot of lovely imagery too. like
Very
a really
true.
precious stone, you know, something that's really, but also something that's luminescent, that's magical, that's pure, that's, you know, iridescent as well, you know.
I
Yeah.
always think that. I always think that when you talk of it in like about Ayurveda and the idea of Anyi and this beautiful metallic, metallic, radiant fire, this radiancy,
Oh,
the
agony. Yeah.
secret that comes out from
Yeah.
metabolism. Just, I think
Yeah.
it's beautiful energy, imagery of
Yeah.
everything comes out of that fire from the
Sure.
middle. Yeah.
It's funny. There's one time, you know, I've got, you know, when I've taught the aromatherapy diploma course for so long, and you teach the oil so many times. I'm sure, like you and your mum, there's always certain things you love to tell people
Yes.
about a certain
Yeah.
about a certain essential oil. And I always mention, oh yes, about black pepper and the agni, how it stokes the agni, you know.
Yes. So my favorite one
Yeah.
is jasmine, and there's a Sanskrit saying that says, where there is jasmine, there can be no worry." I think I've
Oh,
said that about 9 million times in my life. I just think it's so beautiful over and over.
it's a good affirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
But
affirmation.
I love what you're saying about this idea of being, you know, a little bit worried about leaving behind science and you know the way that people perceive you, because I have a strong feeling about that in aromatherapy. I hear so many people say, majority women, but that's probably because our industry is majority women, talking about how they're imposter syndrome, and you know that they don't feel they're strong enough to go out and talk to people. They don't, you know, immediately they get this idea of, well, who am I? But I do think as an industry we do it to ourselves. You know, we get so engrossed in, you have to know this, all of this science, and if you get that slightly wrong, then we're going to pick it apart. I do think
Yeah.
that from that point of view, you know, we're quite detrimental to ourselves. This idea of like empowering people to speak more, I think, is really important at this point, of just like exploring different ways to think about oils, even if it's not a way that anybody already does it. You know, if so many people who look at oils in different ways, it should be, it's interesting to hear how they talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, I think that I think it's about welcoming people into the experience, isn't it? You know, and giving people, yeah, and also I think, but it is always a challenge, isn't it? But I think that as long as you know, it doesn't have to be like whenever you teach other people, they don't want to know a lot of intricate stuff. They want to know that you have looked into this, you've researched it, but you've also experienced it, and they can see through your balance and your energy that it's something that can be trusted, and you know that, and that you're sharing for their benefit. And I think that, in other words, I think almost like, and I do see this because I see this among our people in our community, that there is a kind of gracious quality, if I, you know, am maybe seeing through rose-scented glasses, my own people, but I think they've got a graciousness about them, which is, you know, demonstrates the fact that I think the general benefits that we get from essential oils creates this innate harmony.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think, I literally do think, it means it improves your judgment. I actually do believe. And actually, if you go back to some of the people like Paracelsus, you know, who was actually, you in fact spoke of Melissa almost like the main inspiration for the term quintessence, because he
Yeah.
believed among all the different aromatics that it rendered itself in that way with humility. You know, that, you know, he himself, I think, you know, really understood that that it was the opportunity to transform and better oneself as well, to better oneself and improve one's judgment, and through things like, you know, Melissa, myrrh, rosemary, things that improve your awareness and consciousness, can only mean that you have a sound judgment. And if you trust that more than your ability to recollect a lot of facts, that's the important thing. Trust your judgment above everything else, I think.
I think that's very wise words. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the world's changing so fast as well, isn't it? That the rules
Yeah.
that applied a year, well, let's say 4 years ago, no longer apply. You know, so socially, financially, everything's just changed, hasn't it? So, as you quite rightly say, judgment is really important to be able to make decisions about what you're going to do in the future.
Well, actually, you know what? I think you're right, because also now, you know, it used to be, well, there's a lot of alternative facts flying around, so you need your own good judgment more than ever. Like you say, it's the complexity of the world, and also there's a lot of misinformation,
Yep.
disinformation, and now on top of which the song by Sting as well, too much information.
There is too much information, isn't there? We are bombarded all of the time. Yeah.
Or the police, I should say. But anyway.
Yeah, police. Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, tell me, how was you obviously studied with your mum your whole life, but who else have been your inspirations?
So I have to say that my main inspiration, I love Kathy Skipper and Florian Bertnai's work. Yeah, The Alchemy of the Soul. I adore that work.
Oh,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, and go on.
Sorry, I'm jumping in again. I'm too Sagittarian. Carry on.
No, go say what you want to say.
No, what were you going to say? You said something else.
Well, I love to read Peter Holmes's work. I do love his stuff. As you quite rightly say, he's extremely eloquent in the way that he writes, isn't he? But he's very concise, and I love Valerie Ann Warwood's work as well. Yeah. What about you?
I was going to say, though, well, Peter and Rhiannon, you know, have probably been my two. Rhiannon is really, in a way, my, you know, main mentor in a sense, you know, but she is for a lot of people. And with the ICANN and, you know, International Clinical Aromatherapy Network, which morphed out of the International Journal of Clinical Aromatherapy, which she was editor and I was associate editor. So now I'm on there as a fellow. But it's, you know, a great place for people to, you know, support each other and get good resources. So Rhiannon as well has, you know, through nowadays, you know, I guess through also, I'm doing a class with her on there as well. Some of us are quite a good advanced level training I can do there. So she's always been a big, you know, inspiration, as well as Peter. But also, I mean, I've hosted many people over the years because I've loved their work so much. And with Kathy and Florian, what's about going back a few years now, I think it was around 2015, one of my advanced students who was doing advanced training with me was in charge of a mental health support group within the NHS in West London, for the whole of West London. And there was a demand or interest in this. She put together a conference, where people, there would be different speakers, and where the audience, psychiatrists would be there, and healthcare, other professionals, and patients as well. And the patients questioning about the whole future of psychiatric drugs, you know, and their overuse and all that, and over reliance on them, and what were other alternatives because of the side effects, because of the over dependency. And I had big interest in this already myself. I mean, and I'd even read this book. It's by Dr. What's her name? I'm not Virginia Murray. Another. Oh, I know you said your mum's good with names. I'm terrible with names, but
I'm useless.
I can't quite remember her name because I've had her book around for a while and it's on my shelf. But she was based at she's a professor of pharmacy at University College London, and she wrote a book which I read. Her name might come back to me, but she'd written a book which I read about all the side effects of pharmaceutical psychiatric medications and
Yeah.
how they mainly just work, if you can call it that, mainly just through creating a certain toxic level of what did she call it, not toxicity, but yeah,
Almost like blockades, aren't they?
yeah. So in the brain. And she was there. I had an opportunity to meet her at the lunchtime. But the key thing was this: Sarah, the person organizing the whole thing, asked me to be a speaker. I didn't, in that context, that particular context. I mean, if it was an aromatherapy context, aromatherapy conference, herbal, TCM, etc. Or I could have done, but I didn't feel that I was really in the right position. I had my private clients, and working with them in that way. But I thought, Florian. So we flew him over, in fact, from New Mexico, from Taos, where he lives with Kathy. They met. That's how they met, actually.
Oh,
Oh no, that's not how they met. We actually met three of us the same time together at the Seattle NAHA conference and made friends, between us since then. So I'd met Florian, and Kathy was in England. So he came over, and he was the one to give I was with him at this West London psychiatric conference, in support, as it were. He spoke. And then the next day, which was a Sunday, he also gave a one-day class at the college, and Kathy came. And then a while later, I don't know, it was the following year, about a year later, I brought them both over. Was it? Yeah, they did come over. That's right. They were both together in America, I think, and then came over and did a weekend at the college, which I hosted. And that was great. Yeah. So they're
yeah,
very,
they're fascinating together as well. When
yeah.
just before COVID, I went down to do a workshop with them down at the Bristol Botanic Gardens, which was absolutely
nice. Yeah.
And the way that they interact as teachers is fascinating to watch.
Yeah. I love the drumming as well. I love the drum.
And me. Yeah, well, that was kind of my first, because of course these priestesses are shamanic priestesses, and that was kind of my first introduction into shamanic drumming. It was a bit of a door opening for me, that was.
Yeah.
But the other people that I love, Bruce Bukowski's work, spiritual phytoessencing. That fascinates me. I get lost for days in one of his works.
Yeah.
And I like to listen to David Crow. I think he's
he's good. Oh, he's a great speaker.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never heard him speak. But we've done like a summit recording together, but never like in a group sitting. And the other person that really is fascinating to me is Felicity Warner.
Oh,
I got my eye so closely on her work, on just learning everything that she does.
Yeah. No, she's amazing. I've heard her speak too. Yeah, they're wonderful. I did a one-day workshop with Bruce once in Raleigh, I think it was, and going back about almost 20 years actually, and it was great. It was great actually. Sometimes also very cool. Sometimes he would bring in songs to introduce the sense of that oil. I think it was I remember we had those Strangers in the Night and everything, but he made this. I tell you what. He made this special like aromatic kind of cordial, I think it was in wine or something, and we all had this little glass and everything. And maybe it was also not having, I'm always a bit over, quite overexcitable at these conferences and didn't have a lot of sleep. But I just remember though, on the way back on the plane, I was like really like high. No, I was really like, I was like, oh my God, I felt like I was on, seriously. And after a day with Bruce, I felt like I was in, you know, in the fifth dimension or something. I swear to God, I was like cosmic. It took me a couple of days to come down after that. I was like, got back. I was writing stuff down, like automatic writing, like thinking I had all these amazing ideas. Maybe I did somewhere in there, like writing all, because it really brought, honestly, it brought this flow of, I
Yes,
don't
absolutely.
know where it came from. It was
So
like
what,
a,
you just like a portal opens and get this huge
yes,
amount of
yeah,
information.
exactly.
The
I
funniest,
got a few spark plugs got blown, that's all.
yeah. You talking about that writing? One of the funniest memories. So the first conference that I was asked to go to,
Yeah.
the IFA asked me to go and talk to. Well, they wanted me to lecture about Rose because I'd just written my book Rose, Goddess Medicine. And they rang me up and they said, we've had a speaker drop out, will you fill in? And I was like, whoa, they've asked me to go and speak in London. I was like, yeah. And then she went, are you sitting down? It's actually in Beijing. And I was like, what? So
Oh,
like, what? And I said to my husband, what do you think? Well, because I'm not a good traveller, I get very anxious. And he was like, you can't turn this down. You'll never get another opportunity like this.
yeah.
You have to go. So of course we walk into the room and there's all of these names that I know everywhere, and Valerie is there. And so I've got my notebook. I've always got a posh notebook. I love like a nice book, so I've got my book open and I'm writing notes and I'm writing notes. And the first day that I did very well, I had extraordinary notes. But the second day, jet lag set in, and I can remember going, I can't actually write a sentence now. And I was like, I could feel it, like the whole thing going, whoa. It's just so jet lagged, but so high on the whole thing. It
Yeah, I
was a
can
very
imagine.
strange
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was actually asked to fill in for Peter once with 2 weeks' notice in Hong Kong.
Oh.
Peter Holmes, yeah. But that was good. Yeah, yeah.
Well, when you go there, you're like the paparazzi, aren't you? There's just, they take photos all of the time. It's such an experience, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It gives me a good excuse to go clicking everywhere.
Well, yes,
But
you're the photographer, aren't you? Yes.
yeah, no, I mean, and Japan, you know, is especially like I haven't ever given a class in Kyoto, but that's like full of temples, you know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet. Yeah.
lots of great places like that. But what I did do when I went to Beijing, though, I flew south down to this Guilin area where those, you know, these mountains that kind of go like peaks into the clouds almost. And I spent a few days there on this Yuling River. It was so peaceful, and the lovely people around the hotel drove me around the mountains and stuff. So, you know, and there's one picture of me picking tea with one of those hats like that, you know, doing all the usual
Gosh, it's just
tourist
the
things.
best. Yeah.
But I'm
Best
glad
job in the
now.
world, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
I said it's the best job in the world when things like that happen, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But I'm glad I did, though, because I think I got to experience a different China, you know, than what you always hear about with the Beijing and everything else, you know. So the kind of old, more rural, you know, way of life, I suppose. You know, not that they were all like, you know, tilling the fields or anything, but you know, it was as, you know, urban, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you're just off the tourist track, aren't you? It's always
Yeah,
a
like
different
that. Yeah, it
environment.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So this your well, that's how many books of the Melissa? This what's it called again? Melissa? What's the
No, the one that's coming out this weekend is
yeah?
Meeting the Melissae, the
Oh,
ancient
meeting the
Greek
Melissa.
bee priestesses of Demeter. So that is book
Yeah.
23. Yeah. So
Which
yes,
book? How many books have you written now, then, including that one?
that's book 23.
What? Oh my
Yeah.
God Almighty! I was going to say, is that your third one? Now you're telling me it's your 20. Oh my God! Okay, look, I've got to get busy, honey.
Yeah.
I'll never catch you up. I need
No,
23 more lives at this rate.
no.
Right.
Between 2014, 2015, I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to me. I wrote 1,000,000 words both those years.
Literally 1,000,000.
Both years I did over 1,000,000 words, and it was
Wow.
just like this information was just like.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then so then I went to Salt Lake City, and
Yeah.
where I saw you, and I met
Oh
Robert
yeah.
Bass, and he said to me,
Yeah.
I really want you to think about writing a book on cannabis.
Oh, okay.
So I did that one, but it was, my husband says it was my climbing my Mount Everest, because at the end of that I was like, I'm never writing another book again. And I
Right.
intended for that to be true until Lemon Balm went, oh no, you are going to. So
Yeah.
so last year the herbal bit came out. This at the end of, in fact, next week the priestess bit comes out, and then I am halfway through writing a book on myrrh.
Oh, great! Because also there's the myrrh priestesses, aren't there, as well? So
Yeah, but it won't be so much about the priestesses. It's more about trying to understand the metaphors it was used for in ancient Egypt, because there's so many sort of weavings of how it was used for the divine feminine. That's fascinating.
Yeah, wow, that's wonderful. Yeah.
And it was what I love is when you get involved in archaeology, which obviously you necessarily have to do, the people on the other end of the email are really accessible and really helpful. And
Oh,
so
right.
quite often I'll ask a question, I'll be like, oh, I've seen you on the telly. And they're like, when I want to see this book when it's finished. So I've got this people a bit reading list that reads like Sky Telly. It's really nice. They're really nice people and helpful.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's lovely. Now,
Yeah.
do you know, that's great. Do you know at all Maria Belgioni? You know that? Do you know
No, should
Maria?
I know who is that? Who should I know?
Well, she's an archaeologist who's done a lot of research in Crete, especially with these
I should know her then, shouldn't I?
very old stuff. So she's written a book called Beyond Distillation. I think Anne Harmon wrote the foreword.
Yeah.
I think you could send her, I mean, if you wanted to, but I'm Facebook friends with her. Maria, she's Professor Maria something Belgiorni. I think Maria something Belgiorni, but the book is called Beyond Distillation. It's on
I will have a
Amazon.
look. Thank you for that recommendation.
Like that, the cool thing about it is what's cool about it is she was able to, she discovered all these, like a bit like Paolo Ravesti in Pakistan, these really ancient distillation equipment.
Yeah.
And from it, they could determine the ancient formulas, including, I think, myrrh and so forth. Which you're
talking about. I do have her book.
Oh, I'm sure you. I thought
it's
maybe
not called that. The bit that I've got is not called that. It's the scientific paper that she wrote. But she was involved in the excavation of a perfumery, wasn't she?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, you know who I mean.
She has a I don't know her. If you would, I would love that. She has a beautiful way of writing. I love reading her stuff. Yeah. Yes, I do. But it's so
bad. I'm not. That really, it's interesting to hear though. So, I look forward to your book for that reason alone,
Yeah, so in fact, I did get it for the research on myrrh, but she said, I'm pretty sure, if I remember rightly, there was no myrrh there, and they really looked really closely, but there was lots of other stuff that was fascinating. Yeah.
I was thinking not so much myrrh. I know what I was thinking of, that other one that is very particular to Crete, and why am I?
Dittany, isn't it? Dittany. There was lots of dittany, if I remember rightly.
Well, especially pistachio lentiscus.
Yes.
Yeah, especially pistachio.
Terebinth. That's right.
Not terebinth, because I prescribed it before for the bacteria, because it has a strong action on that, but got the stomach inflammation. But anyway, it'll come back to me.
Yeah, it's fascinating to put them all together to see, the old stuff against the new stuff. So actually, so if it's passed you by then, so There is online
Mastic gum.
launch.
Mastic gum.
Mastic. Oh, that's so funny. I've got 3 launch parties. So 2 online ones on Friday, and then an actual one here in Ludlow on Saturday.
Wow.
Making Greek cakes. That's was what I was doing before I came on air. And I was just looking, going, these recipes have all got mastic. I need to get mastic. I don't think it'll get here in time. I do get a little carried away. But yes, that's so funny that would come up again. Yeah. But
Well,
so
that's great.
I will send you.
Online, when are you online once again? Send me the dates.
I will.
Yeah.
So there's one. So I'm doing 2 on the Friday because of time zones. So one at 10 a.m. and one at 7 p.m. So the Australians can come and the Americans can come. But yeah, so it'll be good fun.
Okay.
Well, I've loved seeing you.
Well,
So
it's great talking. Yeah.
you must, before we go, tell people about your Instagram lives that you've been doing.
Oh, well, now that's for Japanese people. The one that I'm doing with Reiko Tamino of IMSI, which is the International Medical Spa Institute in Tokyo, where I've been teaching and gone there previously 8 times in real time. But this one is going to be an online class, which is starting in November in Japanese, simultaneous translation. So we're having an Instagram live, or Reiko is holding it for the IMSI Instagram page. That's all. Well, this is the thing. I'm doing it tomorrow evening, my time, 6 p.m. here in California, where I live now with Autumn, my wife, Autumn Summers. But that is beaming live on the Monday morning in Tokyo. So I'm kind of getting used to a whole new time parameter.
Time zones.
Yeah. But again, the other thing is, but an English live class, which will be held at the Heal Center Atlanta on the weekend. I'm doing on the Friday, I'm doing my usual day on introducing the fragrance energetics of essential oils according to Chinese medicine, which is a kind of foundation of the whole TCM approach to aromatherapy. And then I'm doing that weekend with Shelley on psychological and medical astrology of essential oils and aromatic plants, which is on March 15th and 16th. My main thing I'm going to be doing next year is kind of really launching an online version of my diploma course, which I ran for 3 decades in London, with a lot of aromatic herbalism integrated in that as a 1-year, 250-hour training. So that's my plan on that level, as well as some other like shorter courses, maybe of my own, and a couple of other, people whose work I, particularly trying to, if you like, promote, which I won't mention names right now because I might not have asked them yet, but
the worst thing is when you forget one, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I'm just a couple of other things I'm doing next month. I'm doing a talk for the Canadian Herb Conference on something called pharmacological insights into energetic botanical therapeutics, which is, very much that pharmacological energetic connection. And then I'm going to do a similar topic, as far as I can remember, I think live. I'm going to next year in Nashville, which is they've kindly invited me to speak at the next conference of the Alliance of International Aromatherapists, which is going to be held there.
And I think, congratulations, that's huge amounts of accomplishments.
No, that's well, the last time, I did one in 2013 for AIA live in Tampa, and then that was cool. And then not until again last year, sorry, no, was it? Yeah, no, earlier this year, which of course was an online one. I did one on sandalwood. So that'll be fun, and I look forward to, I don't know, I'll either get a 10-gallon hat or maybe some cowboy boots, especially, yeah.
Well, it all sounds very exciting and all very exhausting. So good luck with it all.
I know, yeah, but I am lucky. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's all the herbs and and all essential oils I overdose myself with every day. I don't know, but touch wood, I'm still alive and kicking. But yeah, but I know the big thing with me is I've just got to go out every day and have a good long walk, and I'm all right. So, you know, I don't
Yeah.
know what is it what's your main thing that, you know, keeps you, because you look definitely radiant. So I'm wondering
Well,
what's
that's because it's dark
your
and I'm in front of an Instagram light.
no, you've got lots of liveliness. You've got a lovely, you know, shiny light in your eyes, which we say in TCM is the Shen shining
Yeah.
through. How do you keep, apart from aromatherapy, what else do you do? Just keep positive.
I dance to
Ah,
everything.
oh,
Yeah, I danced to everything. I was born with music in my feet, and then I made the mistake of eating Mars bars, which ruined my ballerina figure. But even now, an advert comes on, that's it, I'm grooving. I get through life by dancing all the time. Yeah.
perfect.
Well, it's so nice to see you.
Great to talk to you. Lovely to see you.
Say bye to everybody, but stay on the line.
Bye bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
See you again soon. Blessings.